And who might you be?
You stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder. I love you.
I know.
Hello everyone and welcome to Frozen in Carbonite. It's time for another randomizer, so let's generate a number. The number is 106. Right everyone, set 106 is a scum set. It's the Findsman's Intuition. It's a 5-1 Narshadar traded, and the objective contributes X force icons to your side during the force struggle. X is the number of captured cards here. So this came in the echoes of the force cycle, and our first character is Zuckuss. He's a 3 cost, 2 health, 3 force pips, which was very nice. He has 1 black gun, 1 white bomb, and 1 white tactics. He's a character, bounty hunter, and he's force sensitive. And he has the reaction: after this unit is focused to strike, look at the top 3 cards of an opponent's deck, capture one of those cards, and return the other cards to the top of the deck in any order. Limit once per engagement. So, very interesting mechanic there. Remember when this first came out, a lot of people were trying this set out. I mean, for Scum at the very beginnings, they didn't really have a lot of cards that were able to put a good deck together. And it took, I think, not until Between the Shadows came out, which was after this cycle, before they started getting a lot better. But there were some people who were really trying to get Scum to work at the time. Thankfully, Scum did eventually become really good. But I remember this was one of the better Scum sets out there. But it was still struggling at the time. But the reaction is good. I mean, you get to look at the top 3 cards, which was always good for card knowledge, seeing what they've got in the deck. You can then capture the one you didn't want them to have, and then leave them with what you would rather leave them out of those 3. From the looks of it, because it's limit once per engagement, if you could manage to clear the focus off of him and put him into another attack, he'd be quite interesting on attack and defense. And his icons suggest that he could be used for either, and the 3 force pips as well. It's probably one of the few Scum characters at the time that had a lot of pips, so he was possibly useful for holding the force. Unfortunately, you probably want him doing his reaction a lot more than you'd want him holding the force, and the fact that he was an elite probably didn't help either. But you can't have everything with characters, but and as you know, Zuckuss and Forlom, they show up a few times in the game, so this isn't their only version. So moving along, wherever Zuckuss is, Forlom's soon behind, and he is a 2 cost, 2 health, 1 force pip, black gun, black bomb, a droid, and a bounty hunter. In reaction: after a captured card is rescued, put this unit into play from your discard pile. So another interesting mechanic with the capture mechanic, and I remember at the time trying to make the capture mechanic work was also an interesting trial and error process of seeing if it's something that was actually viable or not. And once again, it wasn't until later that more sets came in to help the capture mechanic that it then really started to take off. But this was like your fail-safe card if the light side did manage to rescue a captured card, he could bounce in from your discard pile if he wasn't already in play. And yeah, so another thing that Forlorn was mainly used for is because he had that black bomb, and Scum at the time were controlly factions, so they didn't have much damage output. Seems like certain control sets were kept apart from sets with damage, and they didn't synergize well. So if you had a scum control type deck, finding black bombs was hard to come by, and Forlorn was one of the guys that did. So whilst you were laying out your scum defences, Forlorn probably was the only guy attacking at the time. So the following card is an enhancement, 0 cost, which is always nice. It's Containment Field, it's 1 force pip, it's an item. Enhance an enemy unit. Enhanced unit loses all force icons. Now, you get the feeling this was designed to trap Jedi, mainly with their high force pip counts and them always holding the force, giving scum the potential to take that away from them. It was good. I'm glad you didn't have to pay to put this out, because it would probably make the card a lot worse. It's a nice simple card, 1 force pip. Aside from that, it's not doing too much. But yeah, I mean, if you had your Yodas and your Obi-Wans and your Lukes, and you had them committed to the Force, then this was a good way of negating it, especially with the Yoda that came out later in this set that was practically used every light side deck, probably around that time when these came out. Then this was considered quite good. So next we have an event. It's Spring in the Ambush. It's a 1 cost, 2 force pip, and it's a trap reaction. After you win a force struggle, capture a target enemy unit committed to the force. Now this reads potentially really strong, but back in those days, scum weren't good at winning the force. Like I said, probably Zuckuss was one of the few characters that had 3 force pips. It wasn't until some of the big characters came out in between the shadows that we got like Caesar with his, I think he's got 4 pips if I remember him right. That yeah, they weren't great at holding the force. So this was, while it's a nice card, was probably difficult to pull off. But I guess nowadays it's all fair game at the moment, and I think most of the time you're deciding which Zuckuss and Forlorn set you want to play, and maybe this set doesn't see as much play as the other ones, but you look back at some old cards, this has potential to probably do some to wreck the light side's day possibly. So it's situational. I mean, they have to be committed, and you have to win the force, which is no easy task. But in certain decks, maybe if you cross this set over with potentially Sith, have Sith scum, then you've got a better chance of this going off. And lastly, another event. Now this was probably a more common card I see played a lot. It's 1 cost, 1 pip. It's payout, and it's bounty, and it's limited, so you can only do it once a turn. You can't play 2 of these. Remove 1 focus token from each scum objective you control. So going back to saying putting this in a Sith deck, that would rule out playing this card, because you really, to get the payoff with this card, you want a complete scum deck. But this was always a nice early tempo card of, I play out units with my resources, and I leave 1 open to play this, clear my objectives, and then I can play more. So scum were a lot better at building a board, especially if they had this in their hand from the beginning. So yeah, overall I remember this wasn't a bad set, but it probably wasn't the best set. It's situational. Maybe it could see some more love. I mean, I think capture's probably a lot more prevalent now. I mean, if you can get it to work a lot more, then there's a potential to make the objective work well. Unfortunately, later in the game, especially during the Endor cycle, suddenly the actual the anti-capture decks came into fruition with Tamtil and everything. So there was always that potential of a counter, but I don't know. It depends what's being played these days. And put the question out there: did you like this Succus and Forlorn set? Would you play it again? I mean, it's not the worst set in the world, but I don't know. Would you play it? And I'll leave it there. It's nice looking back at a nice older set, and hopefully it'll see some love. Right, thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye.